A flashback to Pennywise's origins, a floating dream sequence, and graphic scenes from the original script are just some of the things that were cut from the final version of It Chapter 1. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers, it's Jan here, and today I'm delving into some of the horrifying scenes, script changes, and rejected concepts we never got to see in the new It movie. And I'll also be explaining how we can expect to see a number of these deleted storylines appear in the movie's sequel. My Pennywise Funko Pop giveaway is also running on this video, so for a chance to win, make sure you subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below with your thoughts about the movie or any of the cutscenes. Spoiler warning, I'm going to discuss scenes from the movie and speculate on the sequel, so take care if you haven't seen it yet. Given Henry Bauer's repeated unhinged acts of cruelty in the film, it's safe to say most of the audience will have been glad to see him get some sort of comeuppance. However, there were a couple of deleted scenes that director Andrés Muschietti revealed in an interview with Vulture that he says would have brought some humanity to Henry. The director explained that the scenes depicted the conflict that Henry has at home with his father, how and why Henry is a monster. The main reason being that he was physically abused by his dad. This additional backstory for Henry would have been in keeping with the character's abusive father in Stephen King's novel. But although Muschietti wanted to include Henry's backstory in the film, he found that in test screenings people didn't react as he expected and didn't seem interested in the background to the bully's sadistic behaviour. So he decided to cut the scenes from the final film. Still, while the scenes were deleted that made clear Henry's abuse by his father behind closed doors, one scene which hints at his father's behaviour did make it into the final movie, and that's the scene where Henry shoots his dad's gun. Two other scenes that the director wanted to include in the shoot ended up being cut from filming as they needed more CGI and the movie was on a tight budget of around $35 million. The first scene given the chop was a flashback that showed the first time when the evil entity It came into contact with human beings. The scene that Muschietti could be referencing appears in some of the original scripts for the movie and shows a young mother in 17th century Derry making a deal with Pennywise, who tells her that unless she gives him her baby, he'll kill everyone. She strikes the deal and so the cycle of It in Derry, Maine begins. In the new movie, we do see Ben and the Losers Club looking at photos and articles about Old Derry, which indicate that It has been around a long time. But we still don't know exactly where the malevolent creature actually came from or any real details about its background. Muschietti has said that in the sequel he wants the character of Mike to play a more active part in discovering the answer to defeating Pennywise. An idea he's looking at is for Mike to become addicted to a substance which then opens up his mind and allows him to see Pennywise in the macroverse. This would be a spin on the chapter in King's novel where the Losers Club build a Native American smoke hole in the hopes that they'll have a vision that will uncover the truth about it, which is what happens to Mike and Richie, who end up having hallucinations that reveal the origins of it. The second scene that was cut from filming was a dream sequence that took place in Derry. Basically, Bill is leaning on a bridge, spitting into the stream below, when out of nowhere he spots a balloon reflected in the water. At that point he looks up and sees that there's a whole load of balloons above him, and then he notices that there are also body parts, and as the shot pulls out wider, he sees there are actually dozens of dead kids just floating in the air. Given that Muschietti has talked about the floating body scene and Pennywise's origin scene as being postponed, we might well see both of them in the sequel. To be honest though, I'm not sorry that Bill's dreamlike scene of floating bodies ended up being cancelled in the first movie, as I think that seeing that would have taken away from the impact of the last part of the film where we finally see Pennywise's subterranean lair and the many dead bodies floating around the hoard of toys and belongings from his various victims. Another casualty of keeping the movie on budget was a scene featuring the Black Spot, which in King's novel was a club mainly frequented by black customers. An early script included a flashback to the club which was burned down by racists during one of Pennywise's recurring reigns of terror, but in the final movie the Black Spot is merely mentioned in passing. Still, although it was cut from the first movie, according to producer Barbara Muschietti, their current plan is to open the sequel with a sequence dealing with events at the Black Spot. Of course, we'll have to wait a while to see if that's actually what happens, but in the meantime, what I do think is interesting in this movie is the way the filmmakers have chosen to change Mike's backstory from the novel. In the film, Mike's parents died in a house fire, and the encounter he experiences with Pennywise begins with a fire and hands desperately reaching around a chain door trying to get free. So I'm thinking that in the sequel the filmmakers may connect in some way the death of Mike's parents with the tragedy at the Black Spot, which in the novel was witnessed by Mike's father. Mike first encounters Pennywise when he goes to make a delivery to a butcher's shop in Derry, and after the delivery door bursts open, he sees the clown's evil yellow eyes from behind a plastic curtain in the meat storage area. And there's some behind the scenes footage of an alternate or extended scene where Pennywise is shown thrashing around and feasting on what looks like a body behind the plastic screen. Now, this scene of Pennywise devouring a body at the butcher's would perhaps have added more shock value to Mike's first encounter with it, though you could argue that just seeing him standing there in the final film is actually more creepy. But I think the reason this moment may have been cut is that if you notice to the right of Pennywise, there's a yellow figure which gives the impression it might be Georgie hanging in his yellow raincoat. In the final film, Georgie has gone missing but no body has been found, so Bill continues to believe his little brother could still be alive, which is a major motivation for him throughout the movie. So by deleting this extra moment of Pennywise at the butcher's, it helps the film preserve that air of mystery around Georgie's disappearance. I've already talked about the black spot scene, which was in an early script but ended up being cut. Well, that screenplay was actually written by Cary Fukunaga and Chase Palmer. In fact, Fukunaga was also the film's original director before he quit the project in 2015 over creative differences with the studio, which led to the Muschietti siblings taking over as director and producer of the final movie. Palmer and Fukunaga still retain the first two screenplay credits, and the final movie is still significantly based on their script. However, the story does appear to have changed somewhat in tone, and some of the more graphic scenes from their script have either been toned down or cut from the final film. One example of the more shocking tone that Fukunaga was going for was Stan's first scene at the synagogue. In the final film, Stan has an unsettling encounter with it in the form of a strange woman from a painting. However, in Fukunaga's script, Stan excuses himself from the rabbi as he needs to go to the toilet, and when he can't find the bathroom, he decides to go inside the mikveh, a place for ritual cleansing used, for example, by women after their period. As he's about to pee in the pool, a naked woman rises out of the water and starts to tempt him while she touches herself. However, she's actually a rotting, bleeding corpse covered in sores, and as she emerges from the water, she says to Stan, "Come float with me." Also in the final movie, there's a scene where Bev's father appears to be about to sexually assault his daughter, something it's implied that he's done in the past. But in Fukunaga's screenplay, there's little room left for doubt. For example, in his script, Bev's father throws her into his bedroom, demands to know whether she's still a virgin and orders her to undress, and then begins to talk in a Pennywise voice. "You'll like it, Bevy. Be like you're floating." There are also reports of other graphic content in Fukunaga's script, involving young characters such as a bully Henry committing bestiality with a sheep. However, this doesn't appear in the scripts that emerged after the first trailer was released, so it's unclear whether the reports are accurate or not. After he quit the project, Fukunaga said in an interview with Variety that New Line Cinema were watering down the movie to make it more conventional and inoffensive, which he said was impossible to do with a Stephen King novel. As for the Muschietti siblings, they've said they weren't prevented from pursuing adult themes in the movie. However, they added that they did have personal limits for how far they wanted to push some scenes or ideas. For example, in an interview with Mad Movies magazine, they said they cut a scene of a kid being thrown into the toilet after having his back broken, because they felt it was really too much to portray visually. Speaking of things that are way too much, that seems to be the general consensus of the filmmakers on that controversial WTF scene from King's original novel, which features a young Bev having sex with each of the other young losers in turn. Both the Muschiettis and Fukunaga decided to steer clear of portraying this moment, which happens in the book after the losers have defeated it, but are lost trying to find their way out of the sewers. King has defended the scene, saying that he wasn't really thinking of the sexual aspect of it, and that the book dealt with childhood and adulthood, and the sexual act connected the two. The Muschietti siblings have explained they didn't think that the scene was necessary for the story and it wouldn't have worked on screen, and they also added that the blood oath the losers make at the end is a much more meaningful way to show how the group have united and matured enough to conquer their fears and it. In his script, Fukunaga actually did a totally non-sexual version of the scene, which showed Bev stopping the losers from bickering and forcing them to focus by simply holding each of their faces in her hands one by one. There isn't an end credits scene in it, but there is a little maniacal laugh by Pennywise at the very end of the credits, teasing that it is still out there and will be back in Chapter 2. However, there were rumours of a short scene involving Jessica Chastain as the older Bev, who 27 years later receives a message that it has returned. Although producer Barbara Muschietti says this didn't happen, she admits that they'd love Jessica Chastain to play the older Bev in the sequel, especially given their experience of working with her on their debut feature Mama, and the fact that Chastain looks similar to Sophia Lillis, who plays young Bev. Another actress many would like to see play the adult Bev is Amy Adams, and I thought there was a really interesting nod to that possibility in the movie when Bev puts on the pharmacist's glasses and he tells her she looks a lot like Lois Lane, who of course has been played on the big screen most recently by Amy Adams. So what did you think of it, and is there anything cut or deleted that you wish had been in the movie? And what do you want to see happen in the sequel? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to my channel as well for a chance to win a Pennywise Funko Pop. I'll announce the winner on an upcoming video, but just before you float off, check out my freaky facts and secrets about the making of the new It movie. Tap the screen here for that or more of my movie deleted scenes videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time, yippee-ki-yay movie lovers!